Hi everyone, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I want to talk about monitoring patient AR. AR stands for accounts receivable. This is also referred to as patient balances and the money that patients owe you in the practice. During this video, I want to talk about some ways to monitor and also ways to make sure that your aging isn't getting too high when it comes to patient balances. A lot of people overlook the importance of establishing a collections process internally in their practice because before you open a practice, you're very focused on everything to get it running, right? You want to make sure that you have all of your equipment, all of your medications, if that applies to you, scheduling, staff, the software, your hardware, everything else. And because it's like, oh, well, patient collections isn't really necessary until we start making money, in a lot of people's minds, they put it off. However, that's not completely true. I have seen many practices that have no policies put into place, no trainings for their staff for approaching the subject of collecting money in general from patients. This does not just go to collecting money after insurances have processed the claims. It's also for collecting money upfront for co-pays or self-pay patients, or maybe even if you wanted a policy, if you can, per your payer guidelines, you have to check each individual contract to see if you can collect an upfront kind of deductible deposit, if you will, if you haven't met your or the patient hasn't met their deductible yet. We are in full swing of deductible season. We're in February now. We're a month into the new year, and deductibles do apply to most people at the beginning of the year. They start over. And unfortunately, the climate of insurance and healthcare right now makes deductibles very high for many patients. That means that even though you're seeing these patients, you're rendering services, you're billing for them, a lot of them are going to come back processed. However, the responsibility of you getting paid is coming from the patient and not the insurance company. This is always a very stressful time of year for not only established practices and big practices, small practices, but also very new practices. A lot of people like to start their new businesses at the beginning of the year. It makes sense, right? Easy tracking, easy taxes, accounting, what have you. However, when you start a new practice and you dive in and start during deductible season, not only are you trying to make money right away because of all of the overheads you had to put up front to get going, but now you have to rely on patients paying their bills in order for you to be able to pay yours. Monitoring patient balances is extremely important from day one, not waiting a month to 3 months out to see what's going to patient responsibility. The sooner you have a policy in place and you've trained your staff and you have things worked out, the better and more successful you're going to be financially, especially during deductible season. So this applies all year round, but deductible season is when I said, everything is more stressful and it applies the most. If you've been operating for a while, this is even more important because you probably have patient balances that you haven't collected from the previous year that are now going into the new year on top of new accumulations that they may be having, and it just snowballs. Monitoring patient balances from day one, again, is so important. But first, you have to make sure your staff understand their responsibilities in this process. This starts at the front desk with collecting copays when required. If you have a policy, like I said, for kind of a deductible deposit, if patients have a high deductible that has not been met yet, collecting that upfront, not missing opportunities to ask patients to pay their outstanding balances when they check in, when they're on the phone. capturing every opportunity as possible to get that money from the patient. And this is the front office registration staff's responsibility. It should be listed in their job descriptions, and you as a manager and or owner should be giving them all of the resources and confidence to be able to ask patients in a respectful manner, but in a very confident, I guess would be the word, manner about paying their bill. Not asking them, would you like to pay today? How would you like to pay today? Did you know we offer payment plans? That's always something to consider if you haven't yet, offering patient payment plans, short term, to pay off their debts to you. But getting some money in the door. And if you don't have the processes in place for when patients are calling, checking in to collect the money, it's going to be a lot harder to chase after them to get that money downstream. And the older the AR is, the older past 90, 120, 180 days, the less likely you are to collect that money. It needs to be very well spelled out to patients in your financial policy, in conversations when they check in, when they register, when they schedule, that you do expect them to pay their patient's portion as adjudicated or stated in their policies and benefits with their insurance company. Consistency is very important. Your staff have to be consistent, you have to be consistent, and that's kind of how you get the patients to be consistent. They will know that you expect it. And I just did a video on patient portals and how they can be super beneficial in this realm of medicine, because not only do the patients have easy, fast, 24/7 access to their accounts to see their medical side of things, but they should also be able to see their business billing side of things on their account as well. And that means seeing how much they owe, paying their bills online, and maybe even being able to set up payment plans online. So it helps take a little bit of administrative burden off of your staff, off of you, but you can kind of let your patients know that's how you prefer, or let them know it's for their ease of access and let them do it that way. Also, maybe being able to send out emails or text messages when balances come due, things like that. And I have other videos that I've talked about these types of things to help you be successful in patient collections. However, you won't know if you're being successful unless you're monitoring the patient AR. To do this, you need to make sure you're running regular reports out of your billing system, and it might be the same system that you use for everything, but you need to make sure that you're running reports, not only monitoring your insurance AR and how much is out at insurance that is going to be coming into your practice after they adjudicate, but also what is outstanding that has already been adjudicated by the insurances and have now gone to patient responsibility. You need to run the same aging reports that you run for insurances, but you need to run it for patient balances. You want to look at the buckets of 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, 91 to 120, and so on, and see, and then put a game plan together. If it's starting to get a little out of control, what are you going to do to reel that back in? What are you going to assign to designated staff internally to start working and calling those patients personally, or sending messages to them electronically if that seems to be more successful, or maybe both, right? What's your internal collections process? Because most people want to have an internal collections process before they turn patients over to a formal outside collection agency. And I think that's very fair. I have also worked with clients that are like, nope, we give them 90, 120 days to pay their bill. And if they don't after receiving their statements, they go directly to an outside collection agency. Okay, you have every right to decide that. However, you need to have this policy in place. You need to be practicing it, and someone dedicated regularly needs to consistently check these balances and see what's going on. You also need someone to make sure that the front desk is collecting money at the same time so that these two can correlate together. What's outstanding, what's being collected at the front desk, and then also look to see what's coming in as payments from patients electronically from electronic notifications, or from the portal, or people mailing in their checks or their credit cards to process those payments. Are they being taken care of and posted in a timely manner? There's so many other things you can dive into deeper by doing this. This is just a high level monitoring, but it's so important, because You need to be financially successful, and that's not just by being successful at insurances paying the claims, but also the patients paying their portion as well. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but patients who have a very high deductible often have a health savings account or a flexible savings account offered to them by their employer. It's a law. And a lot of them have money that gets put into those accounts either by their own deposits pre-taxed from their paychecks, or their employers contribute to those savings plans, or both. And a lot of times people forget about those, and that is a great way to remind them if they have an outstanding balance. Do you happen to have a health savings account, a flexible savings account? Do you have a credit card with that? Because they should. We can put that on file if your system can, and we can run it immediately upon you having a balance, so you don't have to worry about paying your bill. We can just go ahead and do it if it's okay with you. And if they agree, send them the appropriate paperwork for that to all be kosher, and then you can move that way. Or tell them that they can sign up for a payment plan using that credit card or something like that. Patients get kind of overwhelmed with all of the ins and outs of healthcare insurance because it gets really confusing. Deductibles, co-insurance, co-pays, in-network, out-of-network, health savings plans, flexible savings plans, that they just don't, a lot of them have a hard time remembering or functioning, and that is our job of wanting to capture that revenue to help remind them and help guide them through the process. And you're also assisting your success in the process as well. If you have any questions or comments about this, I would love to hear from you, but please, if you have not adopted the practice of consistently monitoring your patient outstanding balances and to see what buckets have how much outstanding, then please promise me that you do that and you start doing it now, that you start putting a solid collections process in place to capture that revenue, and let me know how it's going. If you already have a successful collections process, your patient AR is low, and there isn't a high balance outstanding that's really old, I would love to hear from you. Please share your tips and tricks with your colleagues so that maybe they can adopt it in their practices as well. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share this with your colleagues whom you feel would benefit. I appreciate the support, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.